So thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you for having me in this program, this wonderful program. Uh, I, I well, so I have been a little bit about me. I mean, I have been an activist, both in India and in the United States for something like 40 years. And these very recent protests in the United States around Black Lives Matter are absolutely unprecedented. I was here in the United States in 2006. The only things that I've seen that are comparable are the uprising in 2006 for immigration reform and to support immigrants in the United States who were undocumented, and so that was the first revised or revived May Day, International Workers' Day in the United States, 2006 May 1st, and there are millions of people, with maybe 3-4 million people marched on that one day. But today, now with the Black Lives Matter movement, this is something that is really sustained. We're talking about, hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of cities, even small towns, have their own protest against the killing by police of George Floyd. So this has really ignited a sustained movement, and people have been coming out into the streets day after day. Where I am in San Jose, California, we've had daily protests in the city, particularly in front of City Hall. There are people who have been protesting not just day after day, but for the plaza has been occupied by protesters for much of the day, and so it's really remarkable. And so, I mean, there are several reasons why this is happening. First, because this has been building for a long time. Police killings in the United States are not new, and there's the fact that, well, first of all, police killings are very common in the United States. There, every day, police kill 3 people on average. 3 people are killed by police every day, and too many of these killings are killings by white police officers, and too many of the victims are Black or African American. So the number of African Americans, relative to population, who are killed by police is roughly 3 times higher than the number of white people who are killed by police. I mean, this is with, relative to their share in the population. So in other words, a Black person has 3 times the risk of being killed by police than a white person. A brown person, and what we're talking about are, other people of color, and particularly, we're particularly talking about Latinos, people from who are originated from Mexico, from Central America. So these brown people have a chance of being killed by police that is 1.5 times higher than for white people. So it's very unequal. The probabilities of getting killed by police are very unequal. The same is true, of course, with imprisonment. The United States has the the world's largest prison system. I mean, it's actually many systems, but in the United States, at any given time, 2.3 million people are in prison. Now that's 0.7% of the population. Okay, so what that means is that for every there's for every 150 people in the United States, there's one person in prison. And there's no country on earth that has imprisoned more people than the United States, except for one. There's only one country that has ever imprisoned more people than the US has now. And that was Nazi Germany. And Nazi Germany had, you know, by various estimates, up to 12 million people in prison at one time. So it and also of the people who are in prison, African Americans are way overrepresented. I mean, by a factor of like 4. You know, relative to their share in the population, African Americans are imprisoned at a rate that is roughly 4 times the rate that white people are imprisoned. And you know, there's an intermediate figure for brown people. And this is why, you know, we talk about Black Lives Matter. It's very clear that in the U.S. Criminal justice system, and by that I mean the police as well as the prison system, that these are systems in which Black lives have never mattered. And of course, and for brown people, it's also true. So there's also another hashtag, which is Brown Lives Matter. But first, we have to focus on the most severe discrimination, the most severe repression, and that is on African Americans. The violence that the state imposes on African Americans is far higher than it is on any other race or ethnic group in the United States. And so this hashtag Black Lives Matter is very important. It doesn't mean that we disregard other lives. I mean, there's a big controversy in the United States about, well, you know, some people will say, but all lives matter. All lives matter. And well, yes, I mean, in ultimately, all lives do matter. All human beings are supposed to be equal. And but the thing is, we can't make it all lives matter unless first we make Black lives matter. It's the same thing with reservations. Why do we have reservations in India? We have reservations in India. The government could say, okay, let's give equal access to education, right? Or let's give equal access to jobs. But you see, it will never happen. It will never happen because the upper castes will take all those positions, and they have their connections in the government bureaucracy and in the corporations to take all of the best jobs and deny the good jobs to Dalits and Adivasis and lower castes and minorities, Muslims and Christians and so forth. So that's why there are reservations, and it's for the same reason. You know, we use the slogan Black Lives Matter. And after we say Black Lives Matter, then we can talk about Brown Lives Matter. And if we achieve, someday we will achieve, we hope, equality for Black lives and for brown lives. And only then we can talk about all lives matter. That's what that's all about. Now I want to talk about the militarization of the police here in the United States. Policing in the United States is nothing like policing in India.
The
Um,
do you,
at least in terms of the local police, right? The local police are largely unarmed. Every policeman or policewoman, carries a lathi, but they do not have guns. Only a few. Usually, officers may carry a gun. In the United States, every police officer has a gun. Every police officer has a gun. They may also have a taser, which is supposed to be non-lethal, but even tasers, which deliver an electric shock, often kill people. Police officers have mace. I mean, they have all this apparatus around them. Police departments of larger cities have tear gas. They have rubber bullets. They have these rubber bullets are hard rubber. They have caused irreparable injury. They have or a rubber bullet. It can kill if it hits at the right place. It can certainly take out an eye. One young man lost a testicle um, from a rubber bullet here in San Jose. So the police here are very heavily armed, very heavily weaponized. They have armored personnel carriers. When in San Jose, early in the protests, San Jose Police Department brought out two armored personnel carriers. Why do they need armored personnel carriers? The protesters are not armed. We are nonviolent. Nobody in San Jose no protester has ever brought a weapon into the protests, and the organizers of the protests will not allow it. So why do the police have to, respond in this way? Um, so this militarization of the police is a serious problem. And so one of the things that we demand in changing how policing is done in the United States is the demilitarization of the police. Militarization of police is one reason why the amount of money that is spent on police in most U.S. cities, whether they're big or small, is that the police budget is more than half the entire city budget. So the city budget that is used for repairing roads, for paying the city employees, for sewers, for street lights, um, for services, um, for regulating construction permits, fire, for all these other services. The city budgets for all these other services put together are typically less than the amount spent on police. The police budget is usually more than half the entire city budget. And people are saying that this has to change. I will also say that, in the past, movements for police reform have captured the support of, a segment of the population. There's a segment that really feels impassioned about it, and of course this includes Black people and most brown people, and most people of color. The white population, which is still the majority, about more than something like 3/4 of the U.S. population is still white, have tended to oppose um, uh, major reforms in policing. But the one thing that has happened is that because of the availability of smartphones and that so many of these police killings have now been captured on video, one after another. We're talking about hundreds of police killings have been captured on video. And these are, I want to say about these police killings that we're talking about police killings of unarmed uh, people, civilians, most of them black and brown. And this is why the awareness of police killings in the United States is so much greater today than it was 15 years ago or 20 years ago. If we go back, like, I don't remember whether it's 30 years or when, to the Rodney King, the beating and to death of Rodney King, a black man, by police in Los Angeles, many years ago, ignited a firestorm because it was caught on video. But you know, civilian videos were very rare in those days because people didn't have smartphones, and so now it's very common to have these on video, and then these get posted on Facebook or YouTube, and they go viral. So that's what's happening right now. And the other reason that we have such large protests is because of the COVID-19 pandemic. 40 million Americans have lost their jobs. 40 million people have lost their jobs within the past 2 and 3 months. So they have time to go out into the streets. Students are basically all in-person classes have been canceled for 3 months. People are ready. I know they've been kept home, so there's a kind of a restlessness. But there's also, every time there's a police killing, there's more and more people become aware and realize that there's something really fundamentally wrong with policing in the United States.
Yeah.
And what's wrong with it is many things. As I said, it's partly the over militarization. It's the legal system that gives police virtual immunity from justice. So if you look at how many police have been charged for unjustified killings of civilians, it's a very small percentage. We're talking about maybe 2% have been charged. And of those who are charged, only about 1 in 5 are actually convicted. So it's a very small number. We're talking about maybe a third of a percent, in other words, 0.3% of police who are involved in killings are actually convicted. It's a very small number. So why is it that way? Why is this racial imbalance there? And that's because there's racial profiling. Very simple. A policeman, with the kind of training that they have, they see a black man and they see a criminal. I mean, that's what's in their mind, is that if the person is black, he must be up to something, and there's a confrontation that often leads to death.
Sharat, we might.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is it possible to wrap up?
Wrap up? Okay, sure. I'll wrap up.
Sorry.
So I want to say that what's really behind this is a subconscious, white supremacy. And white supremacy is deeply embedded in American society. And one of the things that the U.S. legacy, historical legacy, is the legacy of slavery. The United States was the last country in the Americas to abolish slavery, the last country, and so we are still, and we've never really had a revolution to overcome that legacy of slavery. So finally, I'll just say that the campaign of Black Lives Matter has come down to another hashtag, which is defund the police, or defund police. Another hashtag is abolish police. people are talking about abolishing policing as we know it in the United States. And that doesn't mean, that having no police, but it's about abolishing the police as we know it today and creating a whole new system of community policing that is fully under the control of the community and that has full community oversight. So with that, I will wind up and say that Black Lives Matter, and in India, it's the same thing to say, Dalit lives matter. You have to have Dalit lives matter before you can ever talk about all lives matter. Thank you.